subtle and not so subtle ways that forces like fear and conformity shape us as citizens. Revisiting his work 15 years later with a decade of teaching under my belt, I find myself thinking more deeply about the intersection between individual flourishing and community flourishing, what it means for civic education, and where Thoreau might fit into it. So what does flourishing have to do with civic education? While the civic purposes of education appear in nearly every school mission statement, civic learning in K-12 settings is often confined to civics courses under the umbrella of social studies. There, students learn about the Constitution, the inner workings of government, and when done well, they might even learn how to take action on the issues that matter to them. While there has been meaningful progress in making curriculum more inclusive and helping students see themselves in what they study, I've found in my own teaching and curriculum studies that civics often falls short of addressing the inner life of students, what they care about, who they're becoming, how their life projects connect to the world around them. I often wonder what it would mean to think about civic education in the context of flourishing, rather than mere civic knowledge or whatever we want to call it, what happens in traditional K-12. That wondering has brought me into conversation with thinkers who've explored the relationship between the work we do on ourselves and our role as citizens, a tradition sometimes referred to as the care of the self or philosophy as a way of life. It is a theme that appears across a diverse set of political and spiritual sources, from Gandhi's writings on self-rule, to Plato's Alcibiades, to the poetry of Audre Lorde. I guess even Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror might be understood as a popularized version of this idea in some way. A recent book by Daniel Weish, The Care of the Self and Care of the Other, has explored this tradition in greater depth. What I find valuable is that across this tradition, we find conceptions of flourishing far deeper than our contemporary use of the word happiness or well-being, conceptions that prompt us to consider the good of the individual alongside the good of the community. We also find an emphasis on practice, the idea that the self is formed through daily exercises, which suggests that citizenship, too, might be less of a body of knowledge than something practiced and lived over and over again. I've come to read Thoreau in this tradition of the care of the self and human flourishing. So unpacking the many layers of Thoreau's flourishing and how he fits within this tradition is beyond the scope of this talk. Happily, it seems that others here are taking up that work. In my 2 days here, I've already had multiple conversations and collected several book recommendations that are sure to inform how I think about this topic. I also noticed 2 papers on this year's program that seem to address this question in ways that interest me. What I can offer, however, are 2 ways that Thoreau has informed the way that I think about civic education in my own practice. First, I believe that Thoreau prompts us to consider how our own life projects align with the world we want to see, how the personal and the political intersect in our lives. This is very powerful for students, many whom have real visions of the world they want, and yet are hungry to understand how their own lives, their own choices, their own projects, their education, their work, how it fits into this larger vision. Second, Thoreau shows us the daily practices of flourishing, walking, observing, attending. These daily practices might be of real value in conversations on civic education. Consider the issue of attention, or what some have called attention fracturing, technologies designed to capture and monetize our attention. It reaches deep into our inner lives and calls on us to analyze our habits and our practices and their political relevance. Walking, journaling, observing. Thoreau reminds us that attention is something that we can practice, that we could cultivate together. These are the kinds of questions that open up when we think about civic education in the context of flourishing. Every year around March, I find myself having doubts about just about everything. Should I really make the trek up to Concord for a 4th consecutive gathering? Should I keep working on this crazy curriculum idea about walking and philosophy? What if I lose cell service in Concord? Do they even allow babies at this conference? But these past 2 years since Jason's passing, I've come to think of this conference as a way of sustaining the spirit of friendship and mentorship and flourishing that began 15 years ago in an Indian restaurant in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. Next is Frank Cronin, whose paper is titled Growing the Society, a New Kind of Huckleberry Party. Frank retired from his full-time teaching position at Austin Community College in 2022 after 35 years with the school. He is now back as a part-time tutor at the Northridge campus. Frank serves on the board of Dark Sky Texas, which educates about and advocates for more sustainable use of artificial light at night. He has been a member of the Henry David Thoreau Society for 10 years and regularly attends its annual conferences. His current goal, connected with the Thoreau Society, is to raise awareness about Thoreau among college students. Amen. Please join me in welcoming Frank.
Good afternoon. First slide, please. Jacob, if you could give me your text, I'll do your presentation. Okay. Okay, so I'll begin. I have a co-presenter, Dr. Willsky-Ciollo, who couldn't be here, which is a good thing, because it allows me to say something complimentary about her, which in her presence she would be uncomfortable with. At the beginning of our project last fall, I knew that Lucy wanted to finish, submit, and defend her dissertation in the spring. So at many times during our project, I gave her a chance to back away, even back out, as I saw her dissertation work to be just as important, if not more important, than the project we were doing that I'm going to present today. But she never backed out, she never wavered, and I really do appreciate that. I've been to various conferences here, and they always have highlights. Last year, there were two highlights. One was the Ewer brothers' presentation of excerpts from their documentary. They provided commentary for better understanding of what we were looking at in those excerpts, and there was a question and answer period also. The second highlight of the conference for me last year happened at lunch one afternoon when Rich Picaretto hosted a lunch table about the Society Speakers Bureau. I wanted to do something similar in Austin, Texas, so I joined him at that table. About 10 minutes into our conversation, Willsky-Ciollo, then a graduate student at the University of Texas, joined us. And after talking with her a little bit, and she told me that she was from the University of Texas at Austin, and I told her that I'm retired from Austin Community College, we made an initial connection. I also noticed very obviously that she was much younger than the average Thoreauvian, and I knew that we would make a stronger connection at the conference. We did, and we decided to work on a project for this year's conference. We started that project. You haven't found my... No. Okay, because I did get confirmation that the society did get it.
I'm just going to keep racing through.
Okay, that's all right. Maybe I'll jump down here and act out certain things. I don't know. So.
No, that's the end of it.
Okay. We'll just move on, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. In the fall, we decided to do a project with two goals. One, to heighten the profile of Thoreau among college students. And of course, we had fertile fields at the University of Texas and Austin Community College. We have a concern about the demographics of the society, and we wanted to help the society grow and flourish by bringing in some younger people. And two, we wanted to coordinate this effort with the premiere of the Thoreau documentary, which aired on PBS and is streaming on PBS. And in pairing our efforts, promote that documentary too. Now, Lucy and I were both new to this kind of project. We knew that there would be obstacles, probably obstacles we didn't even know about, So we saw it from the beginning as a multi-semester project. In a way, we're both in transition at our schools, which was going to make our working with the schools possibly a little more difficult. Lucy, with her PhD work, is nearing the end of her time at UT. I retired 3 years from Austin Community College, though returning as a part-time tutor, and tutor is not as plugged into the school as I was. Teachers I worked with back then have retired. There's new teachers. The organizational structures changed. The schools continue to grow exponentially. COVID and the increased number of online classes and activities just made our job a little more difficult. From our first meeting, Lucy emphasized that she wanted to connect with students in what she called third spaces outside the classroom. And we discussed various ways of doing this: a book club, a sauntering club, a combination of the two. This is exactly what Todd from UT Permian Basin pointed out showed us in his presentation yesterday in taking students to a wildlife refuge, go to stations where they read some stuff from Thoreau and then write about it later. Though our focus was the audience of young students, we have wider ambitions, the Austin community. So we had another idea how to promote the project. Because the documentary aired on PBS, we sent emails to the local PBS affiliate, KLRU, in December 2025 and January 2026. We thought this would be a really good idea and an easy fit. This is a very popular station in a city with 4 universities and a large community college. And many students who come to study in Austin decide to stay there. So we have a very educated population. In addition to that, KLRU used to be housed at the University of Texas at Austin and is now housed at ACC's Highland campus. We thought these historical and current connections would help us form a partnership. We were wrong. No one at KLRU responded to our emails. Many weeks after the third email, PBS sent an email full of details about the limits and the rights of using the documentary in a classroom meeting and in educational settings outside a classroom. The language was at times legalistic and places unclear, leaving us with many questions. We wondered if we would be even able to show any of the film at our presentation. But we continued. In January, we reserved a room at the Highland campus for the evening of April 9th, about a week after the airing of the documentary. This would give Lucy and I a lot of time to analyze film and what to focus on, and then decide if we got some excerpts, what we would complement or supplement to the excerpts. I met with a librarian at Austin Community College, Maria Ruelas, to discuss ACC Library's possible role in our project. Meanwhile, Lucy met with librarians at UT who were very concerned about the PBS rights and limitations of showing the film or using any excerpts. We were a bit surprised by KLRU's lack of response, PBS's response with all these restrictions and legalistic language, and the UT librarian's caution. Given the many roadblocks that we had encountered, and to a smaller extent because Lucy was focusing on finishing up her PhD work, we decided to focus just on an event at ACC and try again for an event at UT, and that's what we're trying to do for the fall. Finally, we just reached out to Eric Ewers, one of the filmmakers. He responded positively about our effort and offered to send some excerpts. Another indication of the changing times and another kind of roadblock we experience is that ACC librarian Maria Reyla sent up a wonderful display of books in the Northridge campus of ACC. But this campus, which used to be the most populous, 12 to 15,000 students a semester, has very few students now because so many programs have moved to the Highland campus, and since COVID, many students are taking classes online, not coming to campus, and if not coming to campus, not coming to libraries. So as wonderful as that display was, as much energy as Maria put into it, and as much appreciation as we have for her doing that, I don't think it promoted our project very much. However, with Maria, we also created a library resource page, and I was really hoping to show that to you. I visited with the AV person right before, because there on the slide is an internet link to the library resource page, but he told me this room doesn't have internet connection, so I couldn't show it to you anyway. On that is a series of tabs at the top, just like any other website. One focusing on the documentary with the trailer for the documentary. And to the right, we have a nice blurb about Ewers Brothers Production Company. Why not promote them, right? Another tab takes you to some videos and a series of text of Thoreau quotes. And another tab takes you to a list of library materials at Austin Community College. I was very surprised and very appreciative. There are so many books and videos in the library system at AC by and about Thoreau. Maria continues to work with us, and we update this website pretty regularly. So we're getting close to our presentation on April 9th. We reached out to Austin Community College student clubs with a mass email 2 weeks for our presentation. Thoreau's varied interests and talents allowed us to appeal to many students' clubs, from the astronomy club to the philosophy club to the sociology club to the government and technology club to the technology and environment club. Unfortunately, even though I tried to craft these emails highlighting Thoreau's connections to their clubs, and that each email had a link to the library resource guide and a poster of the event, only one club responded. The Astronomy Club, because I knew the president and had presented to them a couple times as a role, in my role as a board member in Dark Sky, Texas. We did a similar mailing to academic chairs. Again, we're able to cast a wide net because so many disciplines relate to one or more aspects of the Thoreau. Once again, the response was feeble. Only one chair wrote back to us. Just like the student club president who wrote back, I knew this department chair and had worked with her on a project before I retired. However, we do know that the department chair sent out the email on their department listservs, which we appreciate very much. Though I retired from ACC 3 years ago, I still know some individual teachers and librarians that I had worked with, so I sent them individual emails, and each one wrote back, which I guess is a lesson. You don't get in touch with academic department chairs or student club presidents. You reach out to individuals. We were still concerned about the lack of response and cooperation from KLRU. So I got an email early March. The KLRU was sponsoring a filming and a panel discussion about the American Revolution documentary that aired on PBS in the fall. So we went. And the first people we walked up to and introduced ourselves to were the people responsible for the event. So we told them why we were there, that we'd like to do a similar thing for the Thoreau documentary, what was airing at the end of March. They looked at us sort of puzzled, which made us think they didn't know about this documentary. We traded emails, though, in the next few weeks. This KLRU representative responded with muted interest. Then she stopped responding to our emails. The Friday before the event, Eric sent us excerpts focusing on Thoreau's abolitionist and nature work, which is what we asked for, and we so appreciate he took the time to do that. Because we know how busy he is out there trying to promote this film. Only then, when we got the excerpts, could we send second emails specifically mentioning that we would have them. ACC provided us with a wonderful venue with high-tech AV, and a techie who met with us the day before, went over everything, and we did not have one technical glitch, which seems to be so part of anything, even decades deep into our technological age. Lucy began our presentation by tying together the double themes of Thoreau's abolitionist writing and nature writing with a presentation on Thoreau's use of nature terms and references in his political writings, drawing in part from her dissertation. I focused on his early life, his surveying and pencil making in particular, because I have found over the years, if you talk to people who know Thoreau a little bit, they really don't know that there was some sort of work ethic and business sophistication to him, because a lot of people just know him as not a bum, but maybe he was someone who didn't apply himself. And I really wanted to emphasize that by elevating the family's pencil business, he put the family into the middle class. I mean, their house is still on Main Street. Check Zillow, it's worth $4 million. I covered his Indian studies a little and his death. We had a small turnout, about 25 people, 10 of them students, half from UT, half from ACC. The others were faculty, staff, and even friends that I'd sent emails. All the ACC students came from one teacher's history class, so we followed up with her the next day with a thank you email. She responded immediately. She told us she had offered extra credit for attending, and the request to keep her in the loop about our continuing project. And as we have continued since then, we have sent her emails. She always responded. The UT students came because I volunteered with 2 of them at a food pantry. You take whatever audience you can get, right? And I really appreciate those 2 students bringing their friends and taking time out to do that. So, we had trouble connecting with faculty and students, and what do we do about that? Over the years, I've worked with ACC's sustainability program. Amber Orr has been running that program for many years, and she's reached out to me on many occasions, because I always present during Earth Week on matters related to my work with dark sky Texas and light pollution. And over the years, we've discussed how to better engage the faculty and staff, especially for Earth Week projects. She's had the same trouble engaging faculty and students. And of course, Thoreau's a proper fit for her conservation environment program, as he's one of our first writers of nature and conservation in America. Amber and I have met twice this summer. Been very beneficial. She's educated me about how to better maneuver the AC bureaucracy, which is a school of 50, 60,000 students. And the many avenues I didn't know about to promote our project. She also warned me that in the fall there are going to be changes to ACC organization and the website, perhaps making our way around the bureaucracy more difficult. We'll have our 3rd meeting when I get back, and to focus on the fall and next spring, especially Earth Week. Lucy and I have met on a Zoom meeting with Eric. He's really excited about coming. We've got a date in late September. We put him in touch with KLRU. We hope that facilitates an ongoing discussion and get them into this program, because ideally we want him to go to ACC, we want him to go to UT, and to have an event in the evening at KLRU in their studios would be our crowning point. I have reached out to individual teachers. 3 of 4 of them have indicated they want classroom visits, including an RTF teacher. As Eric made very clear to us, He wants to come and talk about Thoreau, but he can also talk about filmmaking. Lucy continues to work with the library system at UT. They have a venue picked out for Eric's visit. We're also planning for next spring. Maybe this all falls apart for the fall. Maybe we have to be flexible. But we can learn many lessons here. Mass mailings don't work. It's hard to work with a bureaucracy you don't understand. And though we started working many weeks ago for this fall visit from Eric, it still seems like too short of a timeline. Getting in touch with individuals works so much better, but what we're now wrestling with is how to finance it. Lucy's on her way out of UT. She doesn't have any real connection to any department. I'm a tutor. I'm not with any academic department. So I hope the students or the teachers that I have recruited for classroom visits will work with me to reach out their departments. A little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. That should probably do it. Once we make stronger connections, faculty, staff, and get better attendance, we can go the next steps in our progress, our project to get the students outside of the classroom, experience nature, and engage with Thoreau's ideas in that setting. Lucy and I really thought this presentation would be very different. We'd come and tell about how all our successes, and we had all these students and faculty involved, but the presentation has been shaped by our experiences. However, take heart. Perhaps if you do a Thoreau project at your school, you'll have quicker and surer success. Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Jacob Hundt, whose paper is titled 6 Years of Living Deliberately at Thoreau College, The Making of a Microcollege. Jacob lives in his hometown, Viroqua, located in the Driftless region of southwestern Wisconsin, where he lives on a small organic farm with his wife and 4 children. He is the founder and director of Thoreau College, a microcollege offering semester programs, fellowships, and short courses for young adults, as well as of the Driftless Folk School, which stages hands-on workshops in folk arts, homesteading skills, and ecological literacy. For the past 4 years, Jacob has hosted the Microcollege podcast, which documents and connects educators, scholars, and social entrepreneurs, helping to build the emerging global movement of microcolleges. After attending local Waldorf schools in Viroqua as a child, Jacob attended Deep Springs College and the American University in Bulgaria, before completing an MA in Social Sciences at the University of Chicago, where his MA thesis focused on the role of grassroots educational initiatives in fostering civil society and cultural resilience in rural Wisconsin. Please join me in welcoming Jacob.
Thank you, Lydia. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, here at the Thoreau annual gathering to speak with you. So in the opening chapter of Walden, Henry David Thoreau framed his project at Walden Pond as one of metamorphosis during a time of personal crisis, comparing it to the molting of the loons. Our molting season, he writes, is like that of the fowls. It must be a crisis in our lives. The loon retires to solitary ponds to spend it. As Stanley Cavell observed in his Senses of Walden, Thoreau began his experiment at Walden in the depths of despair, rooted in a set of severe personal losses and a prophetic vision of looming crises in American civilization. The early pages of Walden are filled with bitter observations concerning the lives of quiet desperation he sees being lived around him, and many readers have mistaken this dim perspective for the essence of Thoreau's character. But that is not the story that Walden as a whole tells. Rather, it is a story of profound transformation and metamorphosis, a journey through depression and despair to transcendence and hope, brought about through a contemplative engagement with nature and with the inner wellsprings of the spirit. Like the loon, Thoreau shows us how to use a time of retreat from everyday life to precipitate a crisis needed to bring about our own molting and rebirth. Since the fall of 2019, we have been endeavoring to apply Thoreau's intuitions, ideas, and personal example of self-culture in crafting a new model of education for young adults, which we have presumptuously called Thoreau College. Rooted just 25 miles east of the Mississippi River, which, by the way, I was gratified to learn last time I came to the annual gathering 8 years ago, is officially part of Thoreau country. During the last year of his life, he made the journey west and traveled up the Mississippi River, right by where we're doing Thoreau College. 25 miles east of the Mississippi River in the Concordian little town of Viroqua, Wisconsin. Thoreau College is a representative example of a quickly expanding field of microcolleges emerging over the turbulent past decade in the response to the cascading and interlocking crises in society, in higher education, and acutely in the lives of many young people. For a generation emerging into adulthood amidst the crucible of COVID lockdowns and virtual schooling, cultural and political conflict and polarization, saturation of digital technology into every facet of practical and intimate life, and an open-ended amorphous anxiety about the future of the planet, reading Thoreau's observations of his neighbors' lives of quiet desperation in our classes often evokes a visceral response of recognition and identification. This is a generation marked by isolation and anxiety in ways that few of their forebears ever have been, and many are seeking out their own ponds for a time of molting and renewal. For many young people today, the perfunctory means that our culture has established for achieving and marking the transition into adulthood are clearly insufficient and unsatisfactory. Whether they enter the workforce, attend a traditional 2 to 4 year college, or join the military, the pervasive sense of these experiences is one of crude commercial transaction, wrapped in an ever-deepening layer of bureaucracy, and thank you, Frank, for giving us some examples of that. Sorry. And this can be deeply disillusioning for a young person, especially for a sensitive young person with a budding moral imagination and a thirst for authenticity. As was the case in so many other areas, this is a subject on which Henry David Thoreau was uniquely prescient. His reflections in Walden about the shallowness and transactional nature of his own formal education resonate very freshly today, as do his calls to bring education outside of the walls of the academy and beyond the narrow period of youth, with a vision of Concord as a site of uncommon education, as a village university filled with lifelong learners. Above all, what seems to have been lacking in Thoreau's formal education, and in the formal education offered to most young people today, is an opportunity for true personal formation, for the clarification of ethical and aesthetic values, and for the discernment of the purpose and meaning of one's own life. And here I want to give a shout out to Chris Higgins, who happens to be here today, who is the chair of the Department of Formative Education at Boston College. Chris has written an important book called Undeclared, A Philosophy of Formative Higher Education, in which he cites Thoreau's beautiful poem about this sense of yearning for wholeness and integrity, so characteristic of young adulthood. Thoreau's poem says, "I am a parcel of vain strivings tied by a chance bond together, dangling this way and that. Their links were made so loose and wide, methinks, for milder weather. A bunch of violets without their roots and sorrel intermixed, encircled by a wisp of straw, once coiled about their shoots, the law by which I'm fixed. A nosegay which time clutched from out those fair Elysian fields, with weeds and broken stems in haste, doth make the rabble rout that waste the day he yields. And here I bloom for a short hour unseen, drinking my juices up, with no root in the land to keep my branches green, but stand in a bare cup." The sentiment that Thoreau communicates in this poem is heartbreaking. A parcel of vain strivings tied by a chance bond together, dangling this way and that. A nosegay which time clutched with weeds and broken stems in haste, with no root in the land to keep my branches green. This is so familiar for an educator working with young people today. Each year, the call I hear as a teacher grows louder and more urgent. How can we offer this rising generation, who will face some of the gravest and most complex challenges in human history, opportunities to cultivate formation, coherence, and roots in the land that will enable them to keep their branches green for the journey ahead. At Thoreau College, our evolving answer to this question has taken the form of what we have come to call a microcollege. In crafting this model, we have drawn from the writings and life of Henry David Thoreau, along with a variety of other earlier models and inspirations, including the Waldorf pedagogical model of Rudolf Steiner, the Scandinavian folk high school movement that began in the mid-1800s in Denmark, and my alma mater, Deep Springs College, a pioneering 2-year microcollege founded in 1917 on a remote ranch in the high desert of Eastern California. Along the way, we have been delighted to find and collaborate with an ever-growing movement of fellow travelers who have launched at least half a dozen similar initiatives across the United States and many more around the world. And I'll stop to mention, we have an amazing sample of these people working in this movement in this room again, including, I'll point them out a little bit later, but it's a remarkable gathering for that reason. At Thoreau College, we have come to define the microcollege model with reference to 4 key characteristics, which, parenthetically, I would suggest are also closely correlated with the theme of this annual gathering, with a plausible Thoreauvian formula for human flourishing in general. According to this definition, a microcollege is an organization that offers humanly scaled, place-based, meaning-centered higher education for the whole human being. What do we mean by these? Let's break them down. Humanly scaled. As the name emphasizes, microcolleges are micro. At Thoreau College, our programs in the last several years have ranged from 5 to 13 students, with a full college community, including staff and interns, averaging 12 to 18 people at a time. This is small enough for everyone involved with the college to eat around the same dinner table, discuss together in a seminar class, or to set out for a canoeing expedition together on the Wisconsin River. This is on the small end of microcolleges. Deep Springs College enrolls about 25 to 30 students at a time, for example. But in every case, the small size is a deliberate and important part of the model. There is no place in these learning communities to become anonymous, a statistic, a consumer, part of a mass of men. As a student or a staff member, your contributions of labor, perspective, and fellowship are essential and noticed, for better or for worse. The process of deliberation and problem solving are obvious. In a world where so many interactions are anonymous, virtual, and abstracted, contexts for intensive, multidimensional, face-to-face interactions must be cultivated and protected, and keeping things at this human scale is central to doing this. Number 2, place-based. Henry David Thoreau has been essential in starting to teach American civilization how to have a different relationship to place. For Thoreau, Walden Pond, the Concord River, and the hills and fields surrounding this village are not abstractions. Land and water in different places have different characters and qualities, which can only become known and appreciated through cultivating a deep practice of attention and active relationship, including observation of plants, birds, animals, and the seasons, through seeking to learn about indigenous peoples and other human inhabitants, and through active collaboration with the land through agriculture and foraging to secure sustenance and shelter. These practices are a core element of the curriculum at Thoreau College and many other microcolleges. Our place is the driftless area, a unique and vibrant unglaciated bioregion located around the upper Mississippi River in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. I think maybe go to the next slide. And the next, okay. Great. So, the driftless region. And you can see, with reference to Thoreau's Western journey, the place where Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin meet is the site of Dubuque, Iowa. And that is where Thoreau would have gotten onto the river and headed up to the Twin Cities. So that basically the whole length of the driftless area. So the driftless region is a unique and vibrant region that was unglaciated. All the glaciers that flattened the Midwest went around it. So it's a hill country of rivers and valleys, and it has one of the highest levels of biodiversity in the Midwest and a corresponding diversity of agricultural practices and human cultures. By immersing themselves in this specific place for a semester or for a year, Thoreau College students can gain an experience of what it really means to inhabit a place, which is a skill that can be applied to wherever they eventually make their home. Number 3, meaning-centered. We live, and our young people are coming to adult consciousness in, a world that is awash in an unprecedented avalanche of information, available at the tips of our fingertips, at all places and at every hour of the day. From Thoreau's time until our own, formal education has largely constituted in the attempt to transmit information, facts, from books and the brains of teachers into the brains of students. But as Thoreau noted in A Natural History of Massachusetts, there is an important difference between a fact and a truth. Let us not underrate the value of a fact, Thoreau writes. It will one day flower into a truth. It is astonishing how very few facts of importance are added in a century to the natural history of any animal. The natural history of man himself is still being gradually written. And here I've taken inspiration from Kristen Case's beautiful book about Thoreau's calendar, where she points out this quotation. And the work that Thoreau was doing, he cataloged all of these facts, all of these details, the plants, the birds, and the changes of the weather. But that's the beginning of the work of making meaning of them, turning them from facts and having them flower as truths. At Thoreau College and the other microcolleges, students will encounter many facts, the names of plants and animals, details of historical events, the ideas of brilliant women and men, along with practical skills like how to make compost, use a string trimmer, or butcher a chicken. These are the unrefined raw materials of our education, but the real work of the microcollege community is to help these facts flower into truths, which happens through conversation, contemplation, application, and repetition. Above all, it consists in cultivating a persistent and faithful openness to the possibility that truths exist and might be discovered and perceived. Whether it is in a class, in the garden, or around a campfire on a canoe trip, or around the lunch table, questions of why, what does it mean, how do we know, questions of what is good, beautiful, and true are always welcome and encouraged. And again, human scale and the relationship are crucially important for making this possible. And finally, microcolleges seek to offer a higher education for the whole human being. Waldorf schools and the Danish folk high schools describe their pedagogy as educating head, heart, and hands, while Deep Springs College embraces 3 pillars: academics, labor, and self-governance. At Thoreau College, our version of this formula describes 5 pillars, which we seek to weave into every program in a balanced and harmonious way. These 5 pillars are academics, labor, community, art, and nature. So I'd like to talk about these 5 pillars through some pictures. So we can go to the next one. So I want to also note, if there are Thoreau Society people who know Magda Bermudez. She shows up in a couple of these pictures. Magda was one of our very first program participants, and for years played an important role here at the annual gathering. We were really blessed to have this connection to this region through her. She's there with her back. This is actually the very first day of the very first multi-month-long program of Thoreau College. You can see we're looking at the map of Wisconsin on top of the hill. So, go on to the next one. Oops, it's kind of slow. Next. Okay, so academics. There's Magda again. Later that same day. So academics are a core part of what we do. It's part of what distinguishes a microcollege from, let's say, an experiential program like Knowles or Outward Bound. There are wonderful programs that engage with hands-on agriculture, with the arts, with travel, cultural immersion, and many of our students participate in those before or after being with us at a microcollege. But it's important to engage the life of the mind, to engage literature and text, to really work with ideas in an academic sense. And students coming to Thoreau College now can actually receive college credits through a partnership with Prescott College. And the curriculum is organized in seminar-style classes, so usually discussions of primary texts or the words of a guest speaker, around a table. And again, the small size is really important to this. Much of our academic content is drawn from environmental literature, Henry David Thoreau, of course, Aldo Leopold, who's local to our part of the world, Robin Wall Kimmerer, also who's done work in our region, and other people who've thought about philosophy, who've thought about ethics, have thought about community development and dynamics, rural anthropology. The academic offerings are a little bit different year to year, but really make a lot of use of our place, and a connection between humans and nature stands forward. But fundamentally, these are open, the seminar-style discussion classes. We're engaging important texts and big ideas, and connecting them to the other things that we're doing, including labor. So, hands-on engagement with practical work is a core part of many of the microcolleges. Deep Springs is located on a working cattle ranch in the high desert of Eastern California. We are located in the midst of Midwestern farm country. The county in which we are located has one of the highest densities of organic farms anywhere in the United States. And we build that into our curriculum, both visiting farms and also running a small farm for the college. So we have a flock of sheep, so we do shearing and sheep slaughter, and we sometimes tan sheepskins. We also have several different garden plots where we're raising food for the local community and for the college. We've got vineyards and orchards. We maintain the buildings that we use. And so weaving in practical skills and meaningful labor, work of the body in an applied sense is a core part of what we do throughout the year. The third pillar is community. So by community, we mean both the practice of participatory self-governance. So students will learn how to participate in a meeting, how to facilitate a meeting, how to set an agenda, how to seek consensus of different perspectives, work through practical interests and needs, and really, in general, be able to speak up and have a stake in their life. I find a lot of students have never had an experience like this in their life. They feel like they really don't have a say in the institutions that they've been a part of, whether those are high schools or colleges, or indeed the government or the way the state of the world. So to be operating at a humanly scaled institution where the stakes are clear and where the process of there's a practice of transparency is a revelatory experience. And these are very empowering tools. How do you organize yourself? How do you organize an agenda? How do you communicate and work through conflicts? And that happens at Thoreau College, at the whole college level, where students and the faculty are meeting together weekly to make decisions about practical things like the schedule, planning events and meals, and sometimes larger questions of program design and rules. But they're also operating self-governing households. So the students live in 2 or 3 households of 4 to 6 students, and they do the chores. They also have a little chicken coop and gardens, and so there's practical applied labor in those places as well. This also means, however, the other parts of being a community. Celebrations, we have meals together. We also participate in the festival and the cultural life of our local community, which is quite vibrant. Everything from a harvest parade that happens in September. There is a Day of the Dead festival, and lots of singing kind of on a daily basis. That brings us to the 4th pillar, which is art. So the arts are woven into all aspects of our curriculum. We begin each day with a few minutes of singing, and each week there is usually 2 or 3 sessions engaging with either fine arts or folk arts. Part of our organization includes the Driftless Folk School, so we have a wonderful pool of crafters, people making baskets, carving spoons, fiber artists, as well as fine artists. And wherever possible, we're bringing that actually into our academic classes. So the classic example of this would be botanical drawing. If you're studying plants, here there's a landscape painting class. We also have had a strong practice of theater and theater arts, which support speaking, and the unique kind of dynamics of community that are built in staging a play or a dance performance or something like this. So performing arts, fine visual arts, folk arts and crafts, singing and music, these are all things that students will encounter in their time with us. And yeah, this is an enrichment, cultivation of an aesthetic intelligence alongside an intellectual precision, and practical skills and social skills are an important part of what we're doing. And that brings us to the fifth pillar, which is nature. And as you can tell, nature is woven throughout the rest of our curriculum, from the academic curriculum to the practical labor curriculum to the arts. But in citing nature as a pillar, we'd like to emphasize the immersive experiences that we build into each program. That includes, for our semester programs, these are 5-day, week-long expeditions, canoe trips, winter camping trips, hiking trips, that bring students, out of the little town of Viroqua and out into places that they can have more direct experiences with the landscape, with plants and animals, and start to the ecological literacy of the places where we are, as well as building the social skills of operating on expedition, cooking together and setting up camp, making decisions about what to do in the face of weather challenges and other kind of setbacks. People who know about expeditionary curriculum, NOLS, Outward Bound, and programs like this know the power of this in development and formation, and we're blessed to have a lot of expertise of that in our community. But nature also involves, a deep awareness, introduction to the biological life and the geology and the weather and the astronomy of our particular place. So it infuses a lot of what we do. I also want to mention that in addition to group expeditions, we also have solo experiences. So this is Hudson, one of our students from a few years back. In the spring semester, we set up students who do usually 4 or 5 days in solitude in a cabin. We really need to do that as Thoreau College, otherwise we couldn't use the name. So that's actually, and the students really look forward to this often. Most students that's one of the things that they really cite as something they're excited to do. In the fall semester, we have a sequence of more rustic kind of solo camping. These are tarp camping in different seasons, but really engaging with the outdoors in different times of the year. And then the practical skills, keeping a fire going, setting up a shelter, paying attention to the weather. These are powerfully transformative experiences that we're able to build in. So just you can go quickly through these. I just want to give some more pictures of our seasons. This is our team of oxen that we get to work with, and Annie there is modeling the oxen there. That's Marc and Luke. One of our instructors has trained this team of oxen and has made actually the ox yoke. And so working with big animals, it was at Deep Springs with horses and herds of cattle, dairy cows, and here with oxen. That's a powerful form of education as well. You really can't force an ox to do anything, but working with them, you can actually form a harmonious kind of relationship, which is quite powerful. And that's one of our summer expeditions. So the cycle of the seasons, if you ask what's basic about the Thoreau College curriculum, it is the cycle of the seasons, which in Wisconsin, as here in Massachusetts, are dramatic, right? There are big changes to observe. So harvest season in autumn, we do foraging for mushrooms and wild edible plants. Our sequence of solos goes from the warm weather in September to the cold weather in December. That brings us to winter, which is, Wisconsin winter. We begin each spring semester with a winter camping trip, 5 days in early February or late January. It's a great time to set up observations of dormant trees, the limited winter birds that are there. That sets up the observation that goes all the way to the spring, when we are finally, late in May, planting the gardens. Starting the plants in greenhouses, watching the seeds, thinking about what that means. The life of the seed that Thoreau wrote so beautifully about is something you can really experience and watch. These tiny, tiny seeds, the lettuce seeds, the carrot seeds, and the cotyledons as the seeds take root and then eventually are planted out into the garden. There's a real rich experience to observe. So, that's a little snapshot of Thoreau College. I wanted to give a shout out. This movement, this microcollege model, has a diverse set of manifestations. I can mention, Deep Springs, we have here longtime faculty member and dean, who's also a Thoreau Alliance board member, Amity Wilczek. Also has been a board member, one of the founder, participated in the founding of Tidelines Institute, which is in Gustavus, Alaska. Now lives here in Concord. And we also, Annie is a Deep Springs alum as well as a Thoreau College alum. We also have a representative here from right here in Boston, the College of Social Innovation, which people ask, can you do a microcollege in a city? And I say, yes, look up the College for Social Innovation. This is Eric Schwartz. Thank you for coming here. And another, Thoreau Alliance board member here, Kristen Case, has a program called the Monson Seminar up in Maine, which is has also been, I've interviewed her for the podcast, and is a writing residency or artist residency in Maine that has similar features to the microcollege. I could mention there's also Outer Coast, which is a microcollege 2-year program in Sitka, Alaska. There's the Seguinland Institute in Georgetown, Maine, which does semester programs, and the Gull Island Institute, or Amity was just teaching this summer on Martha's Vineyard. These are just most of these have some connection to Deep Springs. And then finally, we're blessed to have here Cam Bellamy and Chris Higgins, who are board members of the Springboard Foundation, which is doing amazing work to support this movement across the country. So I came here to speak 8 years ago, before we had really done anything with Thoreau College, to come back here to be able to share these images and stories, and to be here with a whole movement of colleagues and people who are working for this is incredibly exciting. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And I haven't heard many calls to action in these academic talks, but if you know a young person who would be excited to do one of these programs, please get in touch. We'd like to hear from them. If you are a faculty member of a university or a college that would like to partner with Thoreau College or these other microcolleges or them as a group, we'd love to hear from you. We have really strong partnerships that are helping with Stanford, with Oberlin College, Prescott College, which gives credits for our programs, and we're seeking more partnerships like that all over. And they really are led, as I think Frank was describing, you need the person, not the department, right? So hopefully folks here coming to the Thoreau annual gathering are good contacts for that. So if this is exciting to you, please get in touch. I'd love to talk. Thank you.
All right, we started about 5 minutes late, so we have about 15 minutes for questions. So the floor is yours. And I think we have a second mic, so our panelists can take this one, and I can pass around another one. Here we go, Marc. Right, Kristen.
Thank you all so much. That was a terrific group of papers. And I just wanted to, Jacob, I just wanted to thank you. For whatever strange reason, my work with the Monson Seminar has lived in a separate room in my life than my work in Thoreau studies. So you personally are the bridge and have brought this incredible room together. So I just thank you for that. It was really delightful to feel the obvious organic connection between them in that great presentation. I really have a question for everyone, which is, I'm curious the extent to which my own experience has been shared by others, which is that I noticed a difference this past year in student receptivity to Thoreau generally, and Walden in particular, that students seem newly excited by Thoreau. This may be that I have changed teaching venue, but I also suspect that it may be part of the moment that we're living through. So I'm just curious if people have noticed similar sort of a little bit less pushback on some of the things in the economy that generally seem to prompt student pushback, and a little bit more interest in the big questions. So I'm just curious if other people are finding that in this moment. And so this is to any of the three speakers, but also anyone in the room who's a teacher who teaches those texts.
and Marc has the.
Well, obviously, yeah, person who comes to Thoreau College expects to read Thoreau. So, but I think I was so Richard Smith, who I've been staying with here, and I was gratified to have his support for the idea of breaking up Walden into parts. So I now usually skip economy because the tone, like especially because we generally are not able to read the whole thing, and I think I want to emphasize a little bit what I kind of gestured to at the beginning, like. This is a narrative story. This is a dynamic character, right? And it's it's first person, right? It's his memoir, but like that the story of transition is something that I try to represent by the sections that we choose to read. And so for this summer, we've got a 5-week summer program ongoing, and I'll be bringing one day of Thoreau to it, and we're going to read Sounds and Solitude, right? So things that really I think speak to. Well, I like sounds because. Of course, all of the like really nitty-gritty, like just the beautiful observations of nature, but also the reflections on technology, right? And those sections really resonate with students. And then, yeah, the whole the beautiful passages in solitude, and students really do get deep into reflections about loneliness and community, and all of those features are really alive to many students. And so I think a thoughtful introduction can address those. But yeah, I think I remember it was heartening to hear you say that when we last talked. That was in general the reception. Yeah.
Let the other panelists answer, and then I will pass the
Sure.
mic.
So the bulk of my teaching life is in New York City's GED programs. So I'd be lying if I ever taught Walden in its entirety. But I will say in the past year, I've noticed among students an openness to really Thoreauvianness and Walden adjacent ideas without even without using that language. I think among the students I teach, there's just a growing feeling of like, what is this? What the hell are we living through? And whether it's Dragon Ball Z comic books or going outside for a walk or anything that's not constant AI and gamified like EdTech BS, there's a growing love for. So I find that to be a hopeful sign.
Sure, do that one.
I don't know whether this is useful, but I teach at a community college in Pennsylvania, and I teach writing classes, but it's like 101 and 102, the required classes, and I make them write in the 102 class about literature, and I decided to introduce a creative nonfiction segment, I'm calling Thoreau's Walden creative nonfiction. How's that? I don't know. Because the textbook doesn't handle creative nonfiction. So in order to get them to read Walden, I just decided to throw this in. And I broke Walden into segments, basically maybe 12 to 15 pages. And there's an audio version of Walden that's actually very useful if students are having trouble reading it. By Gordon McKenzie. It's on LibriVox. And I posted the link to that, and then I put a discussion board where they all had to sign up for one section, and they had to summarize their section and put their favorite quotes in. And so I think it broke down a very hard reading into manageable parts, and it seemed to be well received. Everybody participated, and then the next class we discussed all of it. They were told to read everybody else's posts. So in essence, they read summaries of each chapter and favorite quotes. But that was already interpreted. And it seemed to be a really well-received way for the entire class to become familiar with all of Walden within a week. So I don't know whether that's useful to anyone, but I just tried that recently just to get Walden into the classroom, and it seemed to work really well. So,
And we have it. Here you go.
Eric Schwartz with College for Social Innovation. Thank you for all those talks. What you said resonated a lot with me. We just finished our 20th semester, 10th year of working with about 900 young people in Boston, fully immersive kind of service-based curriculum, getting out in the community, earning full academic credit, and human-sized. And our first semester, Trump was elected halfway through the semester, and we had 14 students, and they were mostly crying. And I think our 10th semester was George Floyd. And I'd say for our first 12 semesters, there was a lot in growing sort of sense of anger at the man and at society that I think you're speaking to a little bit. And the last few years, I think there's much more curiosity and much more open to discussing solutions, curiosity about solutions, curiosity about people with different views. And it's been pretty beautiful to behold. And there's still like nihilism like at the doorstep. And I think there's still a real need to coach in young people a sense of agency and to help develop an actual belief that they can change their lives and the lives of those around them. But that seems like a big part of this work that can be done at a human scale in a way that it can't be done in a lecture hall.
Richard Smith, I'm a public historian here in Concord, and for 26 years I was Henry Thoreau. One of the big problems that we've had in the Thoreau Society for as long as I've been involved is we're all getting older, but we ain't getting any younger people to join the society. And so I think that this could be the perfect channel working with the microcolleges, because you are already dealing with young people who are becoming aware of Thoreau and what he was all about. And so I'm thinking that this could be the perfect example for the society to reach out to younger people and younger people to somehow get involved with the society. And they don't have to come to Concord all the time, but they should. But I also think that it would be a chance for us. We've talked forever about doing outreach programs around the country. We do some here in Massachusetts, but really within Metro West and sometimes out in Western Mass. This seems like it would be the perfect example for us to have little Thoreauvian missionaries, coming to your schools or the schools coming here and doing a lot of working back and forth. So then we'll have the younger generation, and then we'll also be able to spread more about not just the society, but Thoreau and his writings as well. So I guess I don't have a question. I guess I'm just saying this could be the perfect channel for all of us to kind of keep everything that we want to do going well into the future.
Thank you. Okay. So I loved this whole panel. This was really fun, and I'm trying to formulate a question that I feel like you all kind of spoke to community and community education. So I'm going to ask a question for Jacob, but I'm very curious what Marc and what you, Frank, have to think about this, because it's really a question at the end about like community outreach, community engagement, and education, and how things fit together, not always without friction, right? So Jacob, I'm really excited about this. I'm from Wisconsin. My name's also Jake. Cool. And I followed, your work there for a while now, and kind of been meaning to meet you and talk with you about it. I'm an alumni of Northland College in northern Wisconsin, which is closed recently, small environmental liberal arts school following a traditional 4-year residential model, but not sustainable for reasons we could talk about forever. And there's some efforts afoot to turn that into a microcollege amongst a small group of faculty who have remained in that area, a good bit north of Viroqua, I guess, but and so I guess my question is, first of all, who are your students? Because I work at a little liberal arts college now in Iowa, and my students, like, if I told them, hey guys, we're gonna go camping for 5 days in winter, they would, like, the transfer papers would be, I wouldn't even see them. They'd be gone, they'd be done already. And that's maybe the simple part, but the other part is, how are you working with the community? I remember kind of some pushback, some town and gown stuff, and Viroqua was a special place. I've been there quite a few times, but what's your engagement, your community outreach look like? And that's the question I think other folks can maybe answer too. Like, what are some strategies that education and community can kind of come together a little bit more productively than it's often been?
Yeah. First of all, Northland College. I've been in. That is a real sad story, and also represented it like here in Massachusetts. There's Hampshire College, Sterling College in Vermont. This is part of the phenomenon of this moment, where I think some of the really innovative, like interesting colleges out there are closing right now. So that makes all of this more urgent. Northland in particular, I've sent a lot of high school students there as a high school teacher and counselor over the years. Visited there many times. Real tragedy. And I'm excited to say we've been collaborating with that team, and Cam and the Springboard Foundation has been supporting them as well. So they have a real running start because of the work that's already been started here. And so there's like a note of hope in that story for me, because they have such innovative, interesting curricula based on that bioregion, Lake Superior region, that can be picked up, relationships with the native people and everything there. It's a great opportunity for them to keep going, do something there. I think, a couple questions I heard you ask. Who are the students, right? I would say that has easily been the hardest part of this project. And I think it resonates a little bit with what Frank was saying here. I think to be seen, first of all, as a new thing, like people aren't shopping for microcolleges, and we've participated a bit in the gap year world, but it is different from the gap years. Like, people are seeking experiential and kind of often explicitly not academic experiences in doing a gap year. So it seemed one of the reasons that try to cultivate and kind of promote this idea of microcolleges to find those students who are seeking both experiential education and community education and a strong academic component. And I think that's true of many of these programs that I've just mentioned, and of our program. So I really believe I was one of those students. I went off and found Deep Springs. There are young people out there, especially those who might have gone to a Northland or a Hampshire or a Sterling College. There's a big void because of that right now. How to find them is another question. So I think our students they're a mix of sort of regional, like Wisconsin and Minnesota high school students. I've cultivated a few relationships with mostly alternative high schools in our region. There are a few students who find their way as essentially study semester abroad or semester like away from home campus programs, and I think that's really promising. And that the Tideline Institute, that's been their main pool of students. That's institution to institution relationship building, and so I'm hoping to do some of that here today, because that's been an important part of our model. And then I think associating together, especially connections with Deep Springs, a lot of our most enthusiastic students have come basically because they heard about Deep Springs, which gets a lot of media. It's just in the New York Times, and it was on 60 Minutes a few years ago, things like that. And it's very hard to get into. It's also very intense. Not everyone who hears about it and gets it, but actually wants to go there. So every year we have a handful of great students who I heard about Deep Springs and followed it to the next thing, and that's, I think, true of several of these other microcolleges. So I think my sense is that building a larger movement, a larger field, is going to help all of these programs find more students. And so a little bit is my philosophy is very much like a rising tide will raise all these boats. And really, I think to be there for students, like I really remember myself I was so excited to hear about Deep Springs, because I was looking for something that did combine these things, and I have faith that there are a lot more students out there like that. And then your third question there was about the town and gown relationship, and that absolutely it's a real thing. I think I'm living and working in my hometown. My family goes back a couple of generations. I think one of the reasons I love Thoreau and love coming here to Concord is it reminds me a lot of my hometown, which you can read. There's grumpy neighbors. There's that, and you need a local to navigate that. So I think, and that's true of several of these microcolleges also. They've got some like native son kind of person who is actually the founder figure helping to navigate that, and then bridging out to the wider world. But it is true, if you're a small town, you say, hey, we're starting a college, the first thing they think is Animal House. Toga, 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 right? And so that requires, really like we do, and that is part of the curriculum. Like Deep Springs is way out in the desert. There's no town, really. There's just the coyotes and the roadrunners out there. But the students are living in houses right in town. And so if they don't mow their grass there, they get a ticket from the weed police, right? And certainly like once or twice, like only, and we've been doing programs in our one house there where Magda started off, for about 8 years now. A couple times we had noise complaints from neighbors, but a couple times I heard about that, not from the neighbor, not even from the people in the house, but from Facebook. Somebody said, I saw on Facebook that there was a loud thing. So that requires really active, like, local knowledge in a place. But I think that's the minority of interactions. I certainly, we've been able to build really positive relationships with multiple local organizations, and really, I think it's a huge asset to a rural community to have a bunch of motivated young people coming in, and I think most people understand that, and we get a positive feedback.
So I don't have much experience in the microcollege space, and Concord definitely does remind me of my hometown for sure. But when I think about your question, I take it also like as how do we make the case for a Thoreauvian, I guess, style education, given the sort of world we're living in, and part of me thinks it's being more vocal and speaking out against what this sort of narrow-minded job preparation like education, what it's produced in our world, right? Like, I think we have to be more, like, I think we should be more willing to compare the results at this